One of my first high-end audio experiences involved a set of Phase Technology loudspeakers, which is why it's so cool to go full circle today and to share with you all my thoughts on the PC1.5s by Phase Technology. Now, one of the things I knew about Phase Technology is that they design everything in-house right here in the United States. But what I didn't know is, well, pretty much everything that you're looking at right here is also manufactured right here in the US, which is pretty cool. So yeah, let's talk about them. Alright, so here it is, our two-way rear-ported bookshelf loudspeaker. Now the PC1.5 has been in production for nearly 10 years. And believe it or not guys, I think this is pretty cool. I like it because Phase Technology said, hey look, we got it right the first time, there's no need to update it, we're just going to keep it in production until we feel like the design no longer offers a good value. And I can respect that. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to transition over into talking about the speaker and to tell you all what Phase Technology was going for with it. And then I'm going to transition over into how it sounds. So first, if you're interested in things like specifications, just click on the description box down below and I have a link to the product page so you can get all of that information. Now, let's take a closer look at the speaker, starting with the drivers. So on top, we're going to have a 1-inch soft dome tweeter. Now this tweeter is both designed and manufactured by Phase Technology in Jacksonville, Florida, which is pretty cool. And one of the unique things about it is that it has a phase cap. Now phase caps are normal for metal dome tweeters, but you don't see too many phase caps on soft domes. And the reason why they're doing this is one, to soften the top end just a little bit, but two, for even off-axis performance. That way when you stand up or walk around the room, you get to enjoy a balanced sounding presentation. Moving on, we have a 6.5-inch woofer that looks very unique. They call it a solid surface woofer. It's made out of a Kevlar fiberglass hybrid material with, of course, a rubber surround. And the whole point is to eliminate a lot of the issues that come with your conventional woofer. Phase Technology studied the conventional woofers that we're all familiar with, and they said, hey, there's a lot of problems going on here. First, a lot of traditional woofers tend to break up and distort when they're tasked to play higher frequencies. We also noticed that woofers really struggle to play low and high frequencies at the same time without some form of phase inversion. And we've also come to find that normal woofers input as much sound into the cabinet as they do out into the room. And this woofer is designed to eliminate all of that while still giving you good high-end performance. Like the tweeter, this woofer is both designed and manufactured in Jacksonville, Florida. And the entire speaker itself is going to be assembled in Kansas. So, moving on, let's look at the cabinet. You're going to notice that the cabinet tapers. This is going to be for time alignment. The cabinet itself will curve all the way to the bottom. We're going to have our rear port, and we're going to have our 5-way binding post. Why did I say bottom? I meant to say back. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it. Overall, what Phase Technology was going for with this design is something that's smooth and easy to listen to, something that's balanced, and something that'll give you a huge soundstage. So now it's time to talk about how it sounds. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that the price is $1,260 a pair. So yeah. Now let's talk about how it sounds. Okay, so when it comes to raw performance, what you can expect out of this speaker is going to hinge a lot on how you have them set up. If you get them set up correctly, then what you're going to experience is something that's in line with Phase Technology's goals, which means you're going to get a very balanced presentation with great integration between the treble, the mid-range, and the bass, a smooth top end that you can listen to for hours on end, even on less than perfect recordings. You're going to get something that lays down a huge soundstage, and you're going to get a presentation that's pretty full when you look at how small the speaker actually is. But how much of that you get to experience will hinge on setup. Now, I'm going to get to that later on in this video, but for now, I'm going to focus on the natural performance envelope of this speaker, assuming you get everything right. So first, let's talk about the character and the way that it delivers its presentation. So overall, this speaker doesn't project in a forward way like, say, Klipsch or JBL. It's not going to make it sound like there's a rock concert or a live performance taking place right there in your room, only inches from your face. But it's not going to sound super laid back either. It's kind of in between both of those extremes. And the overall presentation, I would say, is more or less balanced and flat sounding. Now, I do think there's some coloration going on there. I do think that there's a little bit extra in the top end, only just a little bit, and the bass is going to take on this warm character. But it's not extreme enough for me to call it a V-curve sound. Instead, there's just going to be a little bit extra on top. The mid-range is going to be exceptionally flat, and then the bass is going to take on that warmth. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to focus on the individual elements of his presentation, and then I'm going to describe how it should sound versus what it could sound like depending on setup. So first, let's talk about the treble. So the treble is going to be the most polarizing aspect of the speaker's presentation. And I say that because this is where setup has a huge impact. For example, normally when it comes to two-way monitors, I have the speakers facing directly out into the room because usually that's where they sound best. This monitor is going to be the exception. When I have it facing directly out into the room, the treble becomes overwhelming in the sense that it becomes a treble-happy presentation. It's almost like saying, oh look, there's the treble, and yeah, there's some mid-range and bass in there, but it's just mostly treble. And the treble itself in that configuration isn't very refined, it's very rough sounding, and it goes against their goals of giving you a smooth presentation. But when you tow them in directly to your listening position, or at least in my room, that's where everything snapped together. That's where it became very well integrated with the rest of the presentation. The top end became a whole lot smoother and became much more enjoyable to listen to the point where, yeah, I would say that they hit their goal. I noticed that in that configuration, I could go to just about any recording in my collection and know that I'm going to get a consistently good listening experience. Now, the top end may not be the most refined top end, but I think it has enough detail and air to satisfy most people at this price point. So the top end, I think, is going to be polarizing because it just depends on how you have them set up. Moving on, the mid-range. The mid-range is going to be consistent no matter what. The mid-range is exceptional. And one of the things I love about the mid-range on this speaker is the fact that there is no suck out when it comes to the handshake between the tweeter and the woofer. Instead, it just goes along perfectly. There's no artificial warmth. There's no thinness. Everything just sounds very natural, clean, articulate. No complaints. I mean, it's everything that you would want from a good mid-range performance for something at this price. The tone is very good and everything about it is just very good. Moving on to the bass, this speaker can dull out a lot of bass for its size. In fact, if you put it close to a wall boundary, it's going to be too much of a good thing, and the bass may get a little bit boomy, and the presentation may now become more bass-centric. So I would recommend putting these speakers at least, I would say, 2 feet from any wall boundary, or further if possible. And you're also going to want to put them on dense stands, something like the Pangea Heavy Duties that retail for $200. Fill them with sand. That's going to be a good way to do things. But the bass, it's going to be strong. So you need to be aware of the fact that, hey, if you already have bass issues in your room, this may be too much of a good thing. But if you get it right, the bass is going to be strong, but not overwhelming. And again, well integrated with the rest of the presentation. And it really does a great job of providing a solid foundation for the music to where it doesn't sound like you're listening to your cliched mini monitors. I mean, it does give you this very full and satisfying presentation. Now, when it comes to the dynamics on this speaker is just okay. It's only just okay. I think that's going to be the limitation of this cone. I would say that for the money, you're definitely going to find speakers that are better at transferring a lot of energy and then stopping on a dime. It's not to say that these are flat sounding, it's just it's not going to be their forte. Imaging, however, is going to be an extreme forte. Now, I noticed that imaging is going to hinge on the recordings. If your recording doesn't exactly have good imaging kind of built into it, then you're not going to experience anything absolutely amazing. But if you use a recording that's very spacious sounding, then these speakers can be downright holographic and will almost give you this wraparound type presentation. It's pretty cool. Now, when it comes to enjoying music, I would say they're very enjoyable. Again, you get them set up correctly, and even with me, I found that I could listen to them across a wide variety of music just fine. Now, when it comes to driving the speakers, these speakers do present a 4-ohm load, but they're also rated at 90 dB sensitivity. And I've come to find that as long as you feed them 20 watts in a small room, as long as you listen at moderate to low volumes and you don't listen to very demanding music like classical, you'll be good. For most people, 50 to 60 watts is going to be a good place to be. And of course, for those who like to listen at loud volumes, you're going to want 100 or more watts. But overall, when you get it right, this is going to be a very balanced, very enjoyable, very well-rounded speaker that can output a lot of sound from something that's pretty small. But as you can imagine, it's not perfect, so now let's talk about those imperfections. Okay, so as you can imagine, the biggest problem with this speaker is that it's not a drop and plop solution, meaning that if you want to get the best sound out of this speaker, then you're going to need to pay attention to the quality of stands that you use. You're going to need to give it a little bit of room to breathe, and you're going to need to have enough patience to sit down and to ask yourself whether or not it sounds best pointed towards you, pointed straight out into the room, or somewhere in between. Now, if you can accommodate all that, then I think it's worth it because these speakers do offer very well-rounded performance for this kind of money. And the only other thing that I can mention here is that it's Phase Technology. It's a company that some people aren't too familiar with. A lot of people, when they invest their money, they want something that they can brag to their friends about. And there's not a whole lot of bragging rights about Phase Technology. So if you're all about brand recognition and flossing to your friends, then yeah, this is going to be an easy pass. Otherwise, though, I think these speakers are very good for what they are, and that leads me to my final thoughts. Okay, so call this bias confirmation or call it whatever you want, but my time with the PC 1.5 has reinforced the notion that I've carried for a long time, which is a good loudspeaker is a good loudspeaker. I mean, these guys right here are nearly 10 years old. They came out before the world even knew who Justin Bieber was, and yet, despite all of the time that's lapsed between then and now, and despite how competitive the marketplace has become in the affordable realm, these speakers are still relevant. They're still good. They still hang in there with the competition. In fact, there's a lot of you watching this right now who would love these speakers because they are balanced. They have exceptional mid-range. They're easy to listen to. They cast this wide soundstage. There's a lot to like. Now, are they going to be for everybody? Well, of course not. Nothing is. If you're somebody who's big on dynamics, if you're somebody who likes this lively and forward presentation, then yeah, you're going to like other speakers. But overall, I would say these Phase Techs are pretty good. And the fact that they're designed and made right here in the United States to include the drivers, parts on the crossover, the cabinets, I think everything short of maybe like the binding posts and the ports, that's pretty awesome. So anyways, what I'm going to do at the end of this video is I'm going to compare them to one of my main reference points, the Bucart S300s. So stick around for that if you're interested. But if you've reached the finish line, well, as always, thanks for watching. And until next time, peace. Alright, so welcome to the battle of the white loudspeakers. Wait, can I say that in 2019? Anyways, to my right we have the Bucart Audio S300 Mark II, and to the right of those we have our Phase Technology PC 1.5s. And the big question is, how do these speakers stack up? Because not only did I just give the Phase Techs a positive review, but let's face it, there's a lot of similarities between these speakers. I mean, they both use soft dome tweeters, they both use similar sized woofers, they both retail for pretty much the same price, and they even have similar voicing, being smooth on top with some warmth to the presentation. So let me break it down for you guys like this. If you're looking for a bookshelf speaker that has that kind of voicing, this is how it goes down. The Phase Techs are going to be the better choice for somebody who says, hey, I want balance, I want a little bit of warmth to the sound, but I value detail. I want to hear all the subtle information within my recording, and even when the music gets complex, I want to be able to pick out all of the information. The Phase Techs are going to be better at that than the Bucarts. And I feel like the Phase Techs are going to be just a little more balanced sounding, particularly when it comes to the mid-range and the top end. I'll even go so far as to say that the Phase Techs are going to offer a smoother top-end presentation. So if you listen to poor recordings, the Phase Techs are going to be just slightly, and I do mean slightly, more forgiving than the Bucarts will be of poor recorded material. Now, the Phase Techs are a little bit more power hungry, which means if you want to jam out, then you're going to want to pair them up with something that's at least 50, 60 watts per channel or more, whereas the Bucarts are going to be just a little easier to drive. Now, if you listen at low listening levels, I'd say the Phase Techs are going to be a little advantageous there. I feel like the presentation's a little bit more balanced when the volume is barely applied, whereas with the Bucarts, I feel like you need to turn the volume up a little bit more to get them going. That said, the Bucarts are going to be better for somebody who says, hey, I want a speaker this size, but I want a big sense of scale. Because even though the Phase Techs don't exactly sound small, I mean, they sound fuller than the Totem Acoustic Sky, they're still small speakers, and they're not going to give you that huge sense of scale that the larger Bucarts will, because these speakers sound like floor standards from about 60 hertz on up. Now, when it comes to imaging, the imaging is going to be better on the Bucarts. They lay down a wider soundstage with better focus and better depth. Now, the Phase Techs can sometimes match the Bucarts in that regard, but the recording has to be spacious in order for them to do so. Now, when it comes to bass, unsurprisingly, the bass is stronger on the Bacarts. They'll dig deeper. And believe it or not, the bass is also just a little bit quicker on the Bacarts. So ultimately, that is how they stack up. What do you value? Do you like big imaging with a big sense of scale? Or do you want something that's going to be just a little bit more detail-oriented and just a little bit smoother on the top end? That's basically what it boils down to, guys. So anyways, that's it for me. Hopefully you found this video useful. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time, peace.